Section 3.4 is called the quadratic formula. Yesterday, you had an assignment in which you get to choose which way you were solving equations. And when we were talking about that in class, I actually didn't talk about at all the very first way of solving equations. And that was graphing. So we didn't practice that method yesterday, but that is the first way of solving equations, is by graphing. The second and third and fourth way to solve equations would be to solve by square roots. To solve by factoring. To solve by, what's the fourth one? Thank you. Complete the square. And then today we introduce number 5. So this thing called the quadratic formula is going to be the 5th method of doing the exact same thing, solving for x when it's quadratic. Do we do headphones in my class? I am skipping the warm-up. I am half skipping this, half. Usually we go through and we'll justify every single step. But with the gaps that you have had, I don't feel comfortable going through this. But what I'm going to tell you is happening here is we're going to start with a quadratic equation, but there are no numbers put in it. And then what they are doing is they are doing the steps of completing this square. In here, like this step here, ax squared plus, oh, nope, that's not the step. Just kidding. Let me go to a different step. This is where it gets confusing, but right here in this step, this is the step where they put a square in. Do you notice they have a b over 2 squared in there? There's something else with it, and that's why, partially why I'm skipping this, because I didn't do anything with an a. But do you guys see that b over 2 squared? So they're completing the square. We did that. And then from that, they factored the side that they completed the square on. They factored it. And then after that, then they solved by doing square roots, plus minus square roots. That's what they're doing. And when they're finished, they came up with a formula. So this formula is called the quadratic formula. This is what we are learning today. You get to memorize it. I know, right? You're so excited. You get to memorize this. What this is it is completing the square without doing all the completing the square parts. It is a formula that if you know it, all you have to do is plug in the pieces. It is completing the square because that's how they got the formula, but you won't be doing the completing the square stuff. You'll just plug numbers into a formula. Question?
Isn't it like the one where it will work for every question? Like it'll like if you have like the numbers, then it'll
complete the square works for every single question. And I had written that on the board yesterday. Complete the square works always. And because quadratic formula is complete the square, quadratic formula works always. Factoring only works when you can factor it. Square roots only work when we don't have that bx term. Graphing only works when the answers are nice and easy. But complete the square and quadratic formula work always. So those are the most important ways to solve quadratic equations, to solve equations that have squared in. Do you have a question? Okay. So let's learn this song. Here's the formula. We're going to learn the song. So you have to know where A, B, and C are in the quadratic equation. We studied that in our last chapter when we were graphing, so we should already know where A, B, and C are. Also, the equation has to say equals 0 or you cannot do it. it has to equal 0 first. If it doesn't say equal 0, can't do the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula starts with x equals, oh my gosh, I don't like when it overlaps like that. Try this again. Oops, I'm doing this bad. Yeah. Oh well. Here's our quadratic formula. It looks so ugly because it overlapped. X equals, let's do this. Repeat after me before we put the tune in. I'm just going to say it. X equals opposite of B plus or minus square root B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. Okay. Wait, I lost the tune in my head. Okay, it is like Pop Goes the Weasel. Do you guys know Pop Goes the Weasel? Da 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 da. All over 2A. Look at you! Did you know that already? All right, you did your solo. You've done your solo. But that's what it is. All right, so I'll sing it. You guys will put myself out there. We will be singing this together, and if you don't sing it together, this time doesn't have to be together. I'll just sing it. Is there somebody that wants to hear this too? Okay. So, okay. I'm gonna sing it. You guys hear me? I'm gonna sing it, and then we'll do it together. I'm doing a solo.
Can I harmonize?
Can you?
No. No, probably not.
All right. So it goes. X equals opposite B plus or minus square root B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. Okay, now we do it together, or you can have a solo. Your choice. You already had your solo. Together, or you can have a solo. Okay, I will sing it loudly so you can follow along with me, and I'll try to be that like bouncing ball. I'll try to be that. You ready? X equals opposite B plus or minus square root B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. Very good. Now let's do it again and see if we can make them pay attention. Ready?
I wish I knew about it.
Well, let's practice it. Ready? Opposite is negative. They mean the same thing. Ready? X equals opposite B plus or minus square root B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. All right, good job. Okay, so the fact that she closed our door, obviously they heard us. Okay. I forgot. All right. Okay, so now we are going to use the quadratic formula to solve for x. So we see x squared plus 3x equals 5. Can I go ahead and start my quadratic formula? No, why? Okay, so let's make it equal 0. Whoopsie. Hold on. Okay, x squared plus 3x minus 5 equals 0. Now, I don't need to list these, but I'm going to list them this time because I want to make sure that everybody has their correct values. What is A? 1 is correct. B, 3, and C is negative 5. All right, so we're going to do our quadratic formula. X equals opposite B. So right now B is 3. What's opposite of B? Negative 3 plus or minus square root. Now we do B squared. What's B squared? 9 minus 4AC all over 2A.
Is this singing required when you like use the quadratic formula? It is in Every single time.
I want to hear you.
Yeah, every single time you.
You
have
may
to
not
write
sing it out loud during a test.
Aww.
Sorry.
Imagine the whole class just starts singing in the middle of the test.
That would be cheating. Can't give answers to the other people that didn't learn the song. Okay, now some of you were already yelling out like 20 or whatever. Now I'm going to simplify. So -3 plus or minus square root. Underneath, I've got 9 plus 20. Oh my gosh, why is it plus? Because we have -4 and we have -5. So that becomes positive. Like you guys were telling me already at the beginning of class, multiply 2 negatives, we get a positive. So -3 plus or minus square root 29 over 2. Okay. All I did was simplify things that you can do. Now, there are 3 questions that you have to kind of go through to make sure that you have done everything you can possibly do to simplify this. So the first question, these 3 questions. Let me put this in a different color because I want these to be obvious. So that could be the answer, but we have to check. These 3 questions are to make sure that we've simplified it all the way. So the first thing that you want to ask yourself is, did you simplify the square root part all the way? Could we pull out a number from 29 that's a perfect square? Like, did we simplify the square root completely? Did we simplify that square root completely? Is there a square root that goes into 29 that we can factor out and simplify? Is there? No. So did we simplify the square root all the way? Yes. We didn't have to do anything, but it was already simplified. The second question that we have to ask ourselves is that the denominator is positive. So is the denominator positive? Good. So is the denominator positive? It has to be. We're never allowed to leave a negative in a denominator or it's not simplified. So ours is positive, so we're fine. But you need to ask yourself that. And then the third thing, whoopsie.
My Chromebook does that all the time.
I hate it. Is there a number that will factor out of the top and bottom? And I forgot a word. Is there a same number? I don't know how to say that. That'll factor out of the top and the bottom. That is the same. I don't know how to say it.
2 numbers that are the same?
Is there a number that factors out of the top and the exact same number that factors out of the bottom so that we could cancel them? Okay. So when I look at number 3, the -3, the square root 29, and the 2 have no factors in common. So I can't do anything for step 3.
So if there was something on the top line that was divisible by 2,
we will have examples that yes, we'll have examples that use that. So now your answer could be, because all 3 of my my simplifying rules I went through and none of them I needed to do anything because it was already good. So the answer could be this, or so I'll say this is one possible answer, or you could write it as -3 over 2 plus or minus square root 29 over 2. So that's another way you could write it. Typically, I'll do the first way because it's one less step, but I could distribute that 2 to both parts of the numerator if I wanted to. Okay, so that's using quadratic formula, finding the answer. So let's do some of these. Number 1, does it equal 0?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to do our quadratic formula. X equals, what's the opposite of b? Positive 6 plus or minus square root. What is b squared? 36 minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so now simplify. So I need to do 36 minus, what's 4 times 1 times 4? 36 minus 16, what is that answer? 20 over 2. Okay. So now we go through our 3 examples, or the 3 simplified questions, 3 questions. First question, did we simplify that square root all the way?
No.
Is there a perfect square? Why do you have... We already talked about that today, did we not? Square root of 20. Does that break down further?
Yes.
Okay. So my square root of 20 is like the square root of 4 and the square root of 5. So I now have x equals 6 plus or minus 2 square root 5, somebody said it, over 2. So that was my step 1. My step 2 is the bottom positive, the denominator is at positive?
Yes.
Okay, we're okay there. My step 3, is there a number that will factor out of the top and a number that will factor out of the bottom that's the exact same number? The number 2, and I'm going to do this in a different color so you can see it. The number 2 can factor out of 6. How many times? 3. Plus or minus the number 2 factors out of 2 radical 5 and leaves us with square root 5. And in the denominator, 2 times what number? 1. So 2 factors out of the bottom as well. If it factors out, then you're allowed to cancel. You cannot cancel any other way. You can only cancel if it factors out. Only cancel if it factors out. Today in my pre-calculus class, they're doing stuff that looks like, I'll just show you for a second. They're doing stuff that looks like this. Yeah, that's my pre-calculus class. And guess what? I had the exact same conversation with them. You can only factor out what you're canceling. I said that wrong. You can only cancel. You can only cancel if you're factoring. If you take pre-calc.
Yeah. Those random scribbles.
I'm curious. So
You mean someone didn't fall on their keyboard?
every time you do this, a bunny dies, right?
Yes.
I don't understand that.
That's exactly what I'm talking about
No,
right
that's
now.
what-
Let me put it up there.
An example?
Okay, hold on. Let me write the answer. Let me write the answer. Okay. So after we cancel out the 2's, we now have, my thing stopped working. Hold on. So 3 plus or minus square root 5 would be our 2 x's, our 2 values. 3 plus square root 5 and 3 minus square root 5 would be our 2 answers. Yeah. Okay, so Dimitri said something about my meme on the board that's like x plus for x minus 2. I think it's it's this. Well, you guys can't find it because you've drawn a million things up there, but this is what it's saying. If you cancel like that, a bunny will die. Yeah. So question: did I factor in x?
No.
If you don't factor, you can't cancel.
So if you factor first, can you cancel?
If you can factor it, then you can cancel it. So I know that's a place that a lot of students make mistakes on. Yeah, we don't want to do that.
Yeah, why do you threaten to kill the animals on like,
I'm not
most
threatening.
mistakes?
I'm telling you guys not to do it.
She never done that.
I'm not threatening. I'm asking you to not do that. Let's look at example 2. It's the same stuff. Let's look at example 2. Oh my gosh, there's big numbers. Okay. So we're going to use the quadratic formula. Can I go ahead and start using it?
No.
Why not?
Because it doesn't equal 0.
So we need to make it equal 0 first. So I'll go ahead and write 25x squared minus 20x, because I had to subtract 12x from both sides, and then add 4 equals 0. So I made it equal 0. I'm moving my stuff over. Now we have an A, B, and C, so we'll start our quadratic formula. X equals opposite B plus or minus square root B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. I had to write really fast because you sing it, and studies show that singing it will help you memorize it. So we need to do 400 minus, now let's see, what's 4 times 25? 100 times by 4. So I got 400 minus 400, and then all over 50. So I've got 20 plus or minus the square root of 0 over 50. So what is the square root of 0? 0. So what happens if I add 0 or I subtract 0? It's the exact same answer for both. So I get 2/5. When the stuff under the square root becomes 0, you're only going to have one answer. Because you plus and minus 0, it's the same thing both times. So when that happens, you're only going to have one answer. So x equals 2/5 would be my answer. I should have had x equals. Okay, let's do the next one. Sorry. Does it say equals 0 for example 3? Okay, so we have negative x squared plus 4x minus 13 equals 0. Now we can do the quadratic formula. X equals opposite B, negative 4, plus or minus square root. What's 4 squared? 16. Minus 4 times negative 1 times negative 13. All over. I'm sorry, I was trying to erase that. Stop. Erase, erase, erase. It's not erasing. It won't change it. Something's wrong with my Oh my gosh, it's not working. Hold on. I think I need a no, mine's different. I think I need a battery. I think that's what it is. Okay, all over 2 times negative 1. Okay, simplify. X equals negative 4 plus or minus under the square root. What happens when I have 3 negatives? Negative. So I've got 16 minus 52. 4 times 13, yeah. What is that? 16 minus 32. Somebody help me. 52, I mean. What is it? Negative 36? 36? Thank you. Save me some time. Over negative 2. Oh, it's messy, I know. Okay, this is where I am. Now, we go through the directions. Number 1, did we simplify that square root far enough? No. It's 6i. Where'd I come from? You take the square root of a negative 1, it's I. So our next step is negative 4 plus or minus 6i over negative 2. Yeah, of course you're going to need i's again. You think I just gave you that? Yeah. You need eyes, brains, ears. Yes. Okay. So that was step 1. We needed to simplify our square root. Step 2, is there a positive down there?
No.
There is not. So we can't leave a negative in our denominator. How we get rid of that is we manipulate it. Any expert manipulators in here? Okay. So I'm going to manipulate this. I'm not going to change the value of this. So I'm going to manipulate it by multiplying by 1. Okay, I'm going to multiply by 1. But if I just multiply by 1, nothing changes. I'm going to multiply by 1 in disguise.
What is even going on? Why would you do that?
Because what do I want on the bottom?
Positive.
A positive 2. But I can't only change the bottom. That changes the value of the whole thing. So if I multiply by something that is the same on top and bottom, it's kind of like when you find a common denominator, you multiply by a value of 1. So it doesn't change the value of it. It just makes it look different. That's what we're doing. So if you need to change it, you multiply by -1 over -1. Now that makes it a positive 4. But if I multiply my plus sign by -1, if I multiply my plus sign by -1, it makes it a minus. If I multiply my minus sign by -1, it makes it a plus.
So it's minus plus? Huh?
That just means plus minus. It just means plus minus. I'm just showing you that both signs switch, which is still plus minus.
Can you write it minus plus on the other side? I'd like that.
Okay, so now we have a positive down there. The last question, is there a number we can factor out? Yeah, so you're going to factor that 2 out. So I'll do it in different colors so you can see it happening here. I factor out the 2, and I have left over 2 plus or minus 3i. On the bottom, I factor out the 2, and I have left over 1. If they are factored, then they can cancel.
So that we just 2 plus
Yeah, if it's over 1, then you don't have to write it over 1. So we just have x is 2 plus or minus 3i. Why did that one have negative? I'm sorry, I gave it away. Why did that one have imaginary answers?
negative.
Because what was negative? What? Somebody raise their hand and tell me it wasn't because A was negative. It wasn't because C was negative. That's not what made it negative, or an I. What made it imaginary? Elijah, what do you think?
I believe it's because when we broke out -36 square root, we did -1 and square root.
Okay.
36.
Okay, you are right. But why is it I? Because there was a negative square root. Okay, that's all I'm really looking for. I'm not looking for all the details. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Is the reason why we had an I at all is because negative square root. Okay. What was the reason why we only had one answer for this example? What was the reason we only had one answer, Allie? Because it was 0 in the square root.
You get one answer and then negative in the square root, you get an imaginary.
Yes. Okay, I am stopping. Listen. I am stopping our notes here. We didn't do as many examples as I would have liked because we have to start that survey thing. Tomorrow we will be doing analyzing the discriminant. Now, you'll learn about it tomorrow. BTW, we already learned it. I just didn't give it a name yet. Your assignment is in the book. It is a 2-day assignment. That means if you don't want to do a ton of work Sunday night, then you need to do some of it now. I'm going to click on it for a second. 1 through 3, 5 to 11, because I want to show you something before we do our survey. 1 through 3. Okay.
Where did you find it?
Hi.
Huh?
Hi.
Okay.
How are you?
I asked you to do 1 through 3, and like look at number 3. It says describe the number and type of solutions when the value of the discriminant is negative. I didn't teach you that yet, so don't answer that question yet. Go answer the ones that you know how to do. So maybe skip the vocabulary for now, and then the next thing is like 5 through 11 or something, and it says solve using the quadratic formula. So there you go. You can solve these using the quadratic formula because we already learned that part. So don't do nothing, because otherwise you've got 2 full days of assignments to do by Sunday.
On Monday.
Do some of it before tomorrow. The stuff that that we went over today, which is using the quadratic formula. Okay? And then we will finish the discriminant stuff tomorrow.